all is well with you. Today I'm here with a new topic of psychology. So let's get started. If you were someone who understood brain anatomy and were to look at the brain of an animal that you had never seen before, you would nevertheless be able to deduce or conclude the likely capacities of the animal. In each animal, the brain is layered and the basic structures of the brain are similar. The innermost structures of the brain, the parts nearest the spinal cord, are the oldest parts of the brain, and these areas carry out the functions they did for our distant ancestors. The old brain regulates basic survival functions such as breathing, moving, resting, and feeding, and creates our experiences of emotions. Mammals, including humans, have developed further brain layers that provide more advanced functions. For example, better memory, more sophisticated social interactions, and the ability to experience emotions. Humans have a very large and highly developed outer layer known as the cerebral cortex, which makes us particularly skilled at these processes. The brainstem is the oldest and innermost region of the brain. It's designed to control the most basic functions of life, including breathing, attention, and motor responses. The brainstem begins where the spinal cord enters the skull and forms the medulla, the area of the brainstem that controls heart rate and breathing. In many cases, the medulla alone is sufficient to maintain life. Animals that have the remainder of their brains above the medulla severed are still able to eat, breathe, and even move. The spherical shape above the medulla is the pons, a structure in the brainstem that helps control the movements of the body, playing a particularly important role in balance and walking. Running through the medulla and the pons is a long, narrow network of neurons known as the reticular formation. The job of the reticular formation is to filter out some of the stimuli that are coming into the brain from the spinal cord and to relay the remainder of the signals to other areas of the brain. The reticular formation also plays important roles in walking, eating, sexual activities, and sleeping. When electrical stimulation is applied to the reticular formation of an animal, it immediately becomes fully awake. And when the reticular formation is severed from the higher brain regions, animals fall into a deep coma. The old brain there also are involved in the processing of behavior and emotions. The thalamus is the egg-shaped structure above the brainstem that applies still more filtering to the sensory information that is coming up from the spinal cord and through the reticular formation, and it relays some of these remaining signals to the higher brain levels. The thalamus also receives some of the higher brain's replies, forwarding them to the medulla and the cerebellum. The thalamus is also important in sleep because it shuts off incoming signals from the senses, allowing us to rest. So people who have damage to the cerebellum have difficulty walking, keeping their balance, and holding their hands steady. Consuming alcohol influences the cerebellum, which is why people who are drunk have more difficulty walking in a straight line. Also, the cerebellum contributes to emotional responses, helps us discriminate between different sounds and textures, and is important in learning. Whereas the primary function of the brainstem is to regulate the most basic aspects of life, including motor functions, the limbic system is largely responsible for memory and emotions, including our responses to reward or punishment. The limbic system is a brain area located between the brainstem and the two cerebral hemispheres that governs emotions and memory. It includes the amygdala, the hypothalamus, and the hippocampus. The amygdala consists of two almond-shaped clusters, and it is primarily responsible for regulating our perceptions of and reactions to aggression and fear. The amygdala has connections to other bodily systems related to fear, including the sympathetic nervous system, facial responses, processing of smells, and the release of neurotransmitters related to stress and aggression. The hypothalamus is brain structure that contains a number of small areas that perform a variety of functions, including the important role of linking the nervous system to the endocrine system via the pituitary gland. Through its many interactions with other parts of the brain, the hypothalamus helps regulate body temperature, hunger, thirst, and sex, and responds to the satisfaction of the needs by creating feelings of pleasure. Olds and Milner discovered these reward centers accidentally after they had ventrally stimulated an hypothalamus of a rat. Researchers noticed that after being stimulated, the rat continued to move to the exact spot in its cage where the stimulation had occurred, as if it were trying to recreate the circumstances surrounding its original experience. Upon further research into these reward centers, discovered that animals would do almost anything to recreate enjoyable stimulation, including crossing a painful electrified grid to receive it. In one experiment, a rat was given the opportunity to electrically stimulate its own hypothalamus by pressing a pedal. The rat enjoyed the experience so much that it pressed the pedal more than 7,000 times per hour until it collapsed from sheer exhaustion. The hippocampus consists of two horns that curve back from the amygdala. The hippocampus is important in storing information in long-term memory. If the hippocampus is damaged, a person cannot build new memories, living instead in a strange world where everything he or she experiences just fades away, even while older memories from the time before the damage are untouched. This was a short explanation about the old brain, and we read it and we discussed it from different angles and tried our best to understand its functions. I hope it was useful for you. If so, please like and share my videos and subscribe to my channel. Support me, encourage me. Thank you so very much for listening to me. Bye.